Even if you're not someone who considers yourself meek, mild, or shy, chances are you still sometimes have a hard time speaking up, being assertive, sharing and expressing your wants, needs, preferences, thoughts, or feelings. It's not always easy to do because sometimes we just don't know how to do it. So today we're going to talk about 4 ways to become more assertive. 4 things we can do to feel more comfortable and confident with speaking up, throwing our hat in the ring, and being able to say something when it's important for us to say something. If you're new to me and this is the first time we're connecting, my name is Julia Christina and I'm a registered clinical therapist, a researcher, a coach, and an online course creator. I have a master's degree in counseling psychology and I help men and women get through the crap that is holding them back so they can like themselves and their lives more every day. And believe it or not speaking up, not being assertive, not expressing our wants, needs, and preferences when it's important that we do so is preventing us from liking ourselves and our lives, because we go through life, and you've probably experienced this, where you're like, I wish I would have said something, or I wish I could have said something, I wish I'd known what to say, where we end up taking a lot of crap, or we end up just not saying anything and then regretting it later and feeling frustrated later. And then things don't go the way that we want them to or need them to, or things end up just sort of crumbling or falling apart. And we're like, if I just said something, if I just known how to say it, things could have gone so much differently. So learning how to find our voice and to be able to speak up in ways that feel respectful, so they still feel clear, but also kind, so that it feels connected with us, because most of us don't want to go through life being like, this is what I need, and this is what I need, and this is what you need to do, and this is what's important to me. We don't want to be one of those people that like forces our wants, needs, and preferences, thoughts, and ideas on other people, but in the process, we end up kind of tipping the balance too far the other way, because we don't want to be that person who's like, it's all about me. But it's also not never about me, but we become that person where we're like, I'm too scared of being that person. So we swing the pendulum too far the other way. And then we end up not showing up in our lives. We end up living in a lot of frustration, regret, and resentment, because we're not speaking up. We're not asserting ourselves. We're not, even if asserting ourselves feels kind of weird to you, we're not sharing ourselves. We're not being authentic. We're not showing up as our full selves. We're keeping it hidden. And so becoming more assertive is a huge and important way to overcome that. And the first thing that we can do to become more assertive, and this probably isn't rocket science, and you maybe even have heard it before, but using our I statements. And this means that when we have something to say, when something has bothered us, when something isn't sitting well and we want to speak up about it, using our I statements and owning it as our problem. Because the truth is, whenever something is a problem for us, it's because it's a problem for us. So whenever somebody does or says something that we don't like, it's because we don't like it. So instead of blaming and accusing and criticizing them, which gets someone, when we get offensive, other people get defensive. And so being able to use our I statements and just say, I don't like this. This doesn't work for me. When you do this, this is how it makes me feel. When you yell at me, it makes me feel really uncomfortable and I don't like it. So do you see how you're not saying you're rude, inconsiderate, crappy person for yelling? We're saying, I don't like it. Somebody else might be perfectly fine with being yelled at. I am not one of those people. So being able to say, I don't like this, being able to use our I statements and saying when something isn't okay with us and owning it as our problem. We're allowed to have that problem, and we're allowed to speak up and ask for somebody to do something different when we don't like it. They're allowed to say no, but we are also allowed to ask. And if they say no, well, that's a whole other thing that needs to be worked out. The next one is really acknowledging how our boundary, how our being assertive, how our speaking up and not going along with what the other person wants, how that might impact them. So this is the part about empathy, and you might have heard the word empathy before. You're probably really familiar with it, but that's about putting ourselves in somebody else's shoes and imagining how that might impact them. So let's say someone says, I'd really like to see you. Can you come out to my house? Maybe this weekend or tomorrow night or right now or whatever it is, and you have been feeling really overwhelmed, you've been feeling really stressed out, and you really just want some time for yourself. And so that non-assertive self might say, okay, and just do it and extend yourself. And even if, maybe that person lives an hour away and it's a really stressful long drive for you, but you're like, I don't want to upset them, I don't want to put them off, I don't want them to think that I don't care, so I'm just going to do it. I'm going to push myself to do that, even though what I really need is a rest. I need a nap. I need to take some time for myself. So put yourself in that person's shoes and just show some empathy and be able to say, hey, I know that you really want to see me and that we haven't seen each other for a long time and you really want to have some time to connect. And the truth is, I do too. So there's the empathy, understanding what the other person might be feeling. And also, even saying like, I'd like this as well. But right now, I just need to take some time to myself because I've been feeling really overwhelmed and stressed out. So I just need a bit of a break. So instead of just saying, if the person's like, oh, can you come over and come for a visit, instead of just being like, no, I need a break, which might come across as a little bit abrupt or rude and might put the person off, just being able to say, hey, I know that we haven't spent time together much lately, and I know that you really want to see me and I really want to see you, but this is what I need. So being able to put yourself in somebody else's shoes, acknowledge why they may want you to do that thing or why it might be important to them, and maybe even say that it's also important to you, but there's this other need that really needs to be met right now. That need for focusing on something that, if it's at work, focusing on something that you need to get done instead of trying to take something else on because you don't want to say no to someone. Being able to say, I understand that this is something that needs to get done, but I need to finish this project first. So I can't do that right now. And I understand that this is important, but this is what I need to be focusing on. So showing empathy, showing some understanding to where the other person is coming from, and then being assertive with our boundary. The next one, make your wants, needs, and preferences clear. And again, this sounds like probably the most basic thing, but you would be surprised how many people struggle with this one. I see it in my clients. I see it in my students. I see it in, the group members in my Facebook group. I see it in my own life, for goodness sakes. We expect other people to know what we want, need, think, or feel. We expect other people to meet our needs without actually saying what they are. And then we might even lay hints, or we might even kind of just allude to something, but we're not actually being clear. And then we get really frustrated and angry when people don't meet our needs, when they can't read our minds. But the truth is it's nobody else's job to read our minds, to anticipate our needs. And I've had people say to me, if that person really loves me, if it's a close friend or a close family member or a partner, a boyfriend, a girlfriend, a husband, a wife, or whatever, and we'll say to them, we'll say to ourselves, if they loved me, they would know what I needed without me having to ask. And you know what I say to that? That's crap. If you love them, you will tell them what you need. The truth is, there are some people in our lives who are really good at meeting our needs or anticipating our needs without us needing to say anything. And those people are rare, and so hold those people close, but it's actually not their job. It's lovely when we do have people like that in our lives, so appreciate them, but not expecting that everybody else is going to be like that. If you have a need, if you have a want, if you have a preference, make sure that you're communicating that and not expecting other people to read your mind, because it's just not fair. And it also makes it easier for us when we're not trying to run around trying to read other people's minds, where we're not trying to figure out what they want or need without them telling us, and then we get all freaked out and stressed out because we're trying so hard to meet their needs without actually knowing what those needs are. And so trusting that other people can speak up for their own wants and needs, and allowing ourselves to do the same. Number 4, our last one is to focus on the process of assertiveness. So really just notice what it takes to be assertive, and notice when other people are being assertive as well. Because sometimes, and this might be hard to hear, but sometimes the reason why we don't allow ourselves to be assertive is because we don't like it when other people are assertive to us. But it actually isn't all that helpful if everyone is running around trying to read everybody else's mind and trying to figure out what's going on and reading between the lines, instead of everything just being kind of out in the open and clear. And yeah, it's sometimes hard to say no. And sometimes, yeah, it's hard to hear no. But the more we allow ourselves to say no, the more we're okay with other people saying no. And the other part of it is that oftentimes, we get upset when people ask things of us. We get upset when people make requests of us. We get upset when people come to us and ask us to do something. But the reason why we get upset when somebody else asks something of us, it's not because they shouldn't have asked. It's because we don't allow ourselves to say no. We haven't allowed ourselves to speak up and say, I can't, or that doesn't work for me, or I'm sorry, but you'll have to find somebody else. So other people can ask, other people can speak up, and we can say no. And in the same way, we can speak up and we can ask for things, and it's okay if somebody else says no, giving ourselves and other people the freedom to make their own choices for themselves and for our lives. It's really liberating. And being able to say no and being able to receive no are essential for a healthy and happy sense of self. It's just essential for feeling good about ourselves and our lives. Make sure you grab my download, 25 Ways to Say No. On there, I have 25 different ways that you can say no without just coming out, without just saying no. That 90s campaign for, the drug thing. Never mind. The Just Say No campaign in the 90s. You don't have to just say no. Oftentimes, it's more comfortable for many of us if we have specific ways to say no that don't feel quite so in your face. So on that download, 25 Ways to Say No, I have a list of a bunch of different ways to say it that will probably feel more congruent and a lot like more comfortable for you. Like the video, share it out, comment, let me know with you where you notice yourself struggling with being assertive. And one of the things that you've noticed maybe that's happened with you not being assertive, with you not showing up and speaking up, what have been some of the costs of that? What's been some of the damage that's been done for you with not doing that? What have been some of the struggles that have come up for you with not speaking up? Love to hear it in the comments section below. Subscribe to the video. Come and join my Facebook group, goodformegroup.com, full of heart-centered go-getters, kind, compassionate, caring people who are also really fun and really motivating as well. Goodformegroup.com. I will see you there. Take good care.